All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. Yes, I think I got that right.
You're close
My
enough.
name is my name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and today I'm excited to introduce my guest. Mr. Barry Cohen has a background in full-scale event planning and marketing for over 25 years. He has planned many styles of events, from social to corporate, block parties to bar mitzvahs. Starting in 1999, Barry worked as an on air performer in the pro wrestling industry. In 2001, he went from writing scripts to live production. Barry was involved in every aspect of event production: creative brainstorming, setting up locations, and being part of each show's rundown. While earning his degree in event management and marketing from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Barry performed and coordinated events at several major hotel and casino VIP parties for celebrities such as Doyle Brunson, Debbie Reynolds, Lance Burton, and many more. Welcome to the show, Barry. Happy to have you.
Thank you, Jason. Very happy to be here with you.
Hey, so listen, this is exciting for me because, I've gotten the chance to interview several professional wrestlers,
hmm
and I bring it up almost every single time and give a shout out to you because if it wasn't for you, I may never have found pro wrestling in the way that I got involved. And the story goes like this, and Barry, you can help me with it if I missed anything, but um, I remember hearing about the shows, and somehow, some way, you ended up at my karate school, and you said, "Hey, how would you like to promote your martial arts school and get your name out there?" And of course, me being, I love marketing my school. I love getting out into the community, and I'm like, "For sure." And I say, "For what?" And you go, "Well, it's a professional wrestling organization." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like growing up a wrestling fan, like I was like, "Absolutely, I am in." And
Yeah,
so I show up. I think it was 2012, towards end
yeah,
of
somewhere in there.
2012, and we do a show, and we got a table set up, and just from there, you introduce me to Paul Logan X,
hmm
and then Paul introduces me to Steve, Seth Skyfire, and get involved in Millennium Pro Wrestling at the Boys and Girls Club of Simi Valley,
hmm
and then we moved out to Moore Park, and then we did Millennium Wrestling Academy. Now we're in Chatsworth, but I mean, it all goes back to our meeting. Like, if
Yeah,
I hadn't met you, I would have never met Paul or Steve or Danny. None of this would have been possible. So, I'm excited to have you on and tell your
yeah.
story of how you got involved in professional wrestling. But first, did I
hmm
miss anything in that story?
No, I mean, it kind of started out as a cold call because what I did is I was looking for sponsors for MPW at the time, local sponsors based on the venue that we were kind of circulating. So there it was Simi Valley, Moore Park area, basically down the 118 after Topanga. So we were doing that, and then I don't just cold call going store to store to store to store because that never does any good. You know, no one. It's that's a waste of time half the time. I researched you, found you online, and then I was like, all right, this guy's got to be good. And then kind of the rest is history on that. Like I literally walked in and we were talking, and just like we are today. Um, and you had a table, and then that kind of evolved into a storyline, several storylines. You and I have had a lot of meetings on both sides of the ring.
Hmm.
Like where me being a manager, not just a
Right.
promoter, but as a manager and character, you and I have had, you and your family have had several interactions with me, for
Yep.
better and for worse.
Yeah, we definitely, we got some good history and some
hmm
some great stories. So
Yeah,
it's very cool, very cool. Well, hey, listen, why don't we start with talking about pro wrestling?
yeah.
Let's introduce the audience to how you broke into the
Okay.
business, how you got
Yeah.
involved, your friendship,
So
with all the guys.
so for me, it started kind of like 99, early 99 around. I was at CSUN, and I've always wanted to do event management, and I wanted to do something different. So I had a lot of friends who were in the Jewish club at CSUN. They call it Hillel, and it was called and they were looking for something to do because, uh, they had the social events going on, and that's great, but they weren't really drawn like they should.
Hmm.
So in my background, I'm thinking, well, let's do something fun, let's do something off the wall. So I created the Jewish Wrestling Federation, and we put on a show called Hebrew Havoc at the West Valley Jewish Community Center, in West Hills. That was the first event I've ever promoted. So
Hmm.
then I got local wrestlers and gave them Jewish gimmicks. So that's how I met Logan X. Logan X, we gave him Laka X. We had one guy who was the Hebrew, the world's first African American wrestling Jew, public. You know, we had the Shabbato, we had this that. So we ended up drawing about 300 people to that show, and we did two of those. Yeah, we did two of those, and from there, that's when I kind of got into the scene. I worked with a group called the United Independent Wrestling Alliance, and I was there for maybe 6 months to a year, around that time, and that's how I met Paul. I mean, that's how I ended up working more with Paul, and so Dan Farron, and some of the people that you and I have come to know, including some of the wrestlers that you've seen on TV that came through there. Probably like I think Samoa Joe being the uh, top name from that UIWA that I can think of right now.
Hmm.
Um, and then moving on, we started producing MPW shows at the Jewish Community Center, and we were just consistently drawing. And we were having world class talent too. We had Vampiro on one of our shows. We had Brian Kendrick. We had Adam Pierce, Frankie Kazarian. All these people were were a consistent rate. They were regulars on our show.
Hmm.
My role was mainly the venue management aspect because I actually was working at the Jewish Community Center at the time, so it was easier for me to get something. Now, pro wrestling, when you have to pitch pro wrestling to a Jewish Community Center, where most of their programming is Shabbats and Mahjong, is a challenge. Okay, so I literally would have like an inquisition after every show. How many tables did we break? Any tables? Did we break any chairs? Uh, they called me into the office once. It was hilarious because one of the members of the audience walked to our show early because they wanted to meet the wrestlers before sundown on Shabbat. So they called me, and I'm like, it's not my fault. That's great that they love the show. That's great that they love the guys, So, but they're like, well, just telling you, and I said, that's fine, thank you. Let's have a great day. Um, so we were consistently drawing all these shows, and then I started in on my on-air personality at that point. I started in as an announcer, so I wasn't like full-fledged manager or anything during the first run. During the first run, I was mainly doing interview segments. I did get beat up a couple times. The most famous incident would be phenomenal Phil Lander. I hope you're watching this. Who beat me up with a full-size dreidel that we found in one of the classrooms at the JCC. Um, it was an in-ring segment. I asked him a question, something, and him and Ken Knapsack proceeded to beat me in the ring with a dreidel that they found in a classroom, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever experienced. I mean, Hanukkah still scares me to this day. Merry Christmas to you, by the way, but that's just kind of how it is.
Well, hey, how did Millennium Pro Wrestling get its name? Were you there from the very beginning, and who came up with that name?
It could have been Paul or Hellkid or somewhere in that.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe. Um, I didn't really come up with the name per se. I mean, the name kind of makes sense because we started running in literally the year 2000. So,
Hmm.
um, it kind of made sense.
Okay.
As far as the name goes, I don't know. I don't know the exact formation of the name, so I can't really say that. I mean, I put on the Jewish Wrestling Federation, so that might be why they didn't come to me with the name. So I don't know.
Well, but I mean, you were there from the beginning. I
Yeah,
mean, early on,
yeah.
it was Paul, Hellkid,
Mhm.
Jr. I believe Triple X,
Triple. Yeah, he was definitely
Clint
there.
was
He
right
wrestled
right in the beginning,
Diamond.
and so you've been there from the beginning, and you've
Mhm.
seen this transformation too of Millennium Pro Wrestling, as well as being involved with the SoCal independent wrestling
Yeah,
scene.
yeah,
There's lots of different promotions, organizations.
yeah.
The wrestlers come in and out of the groups. You've seen a big transformation,
Mhm.
all the way from way back then to what we're doing now. What do you think has been the what do you think has been the best thing that's happened to MPW? What do you think has been the worst thing that's happened to MPW?
The MPW, it's transformed a few times over, and I think that's a good thing. I was in, I would say, as far as more of a management role during the first two incarnations, which would have been the JCC era per se, and then Yankee Doodles,
Hmm.
Yankee Doodles into Moore Park, about 10 years ago. The first era, we kind of slowed down because of life. Paul was doing his thing, and I actually moved to Las Vegas in 2002 to go to UNLV, and that's where I started my event career, DJing at the hotels and doing all that. The second one was just pro wrestling. There were a lot of elements with it. I could take responsibility for some of it, definitely. But there's passion. But I think there were a couple times like the JCC shows were my favorite because we were just so young. It was what kind of anything can happen. The second ones were the Yankee Doodles. We get a lot of people always talking about the Yankee Doodle shows in the sports bar in Simi Valley. Those were amazing.
Hmm.
But now moving into it, and just seeing how the new guys are coming up. Moving from where we were with you in the gym, which was great, running weekly shows,
Hmm.
all the way into where they are now in Northridge. Which I help when I can, whether it's a manager or if they ever need me for anything, I'm always here. But I think it's going in some amazing places. I really do, and I'm
Yeah.
proud of everybody. I'm proud of everybody to it.
Yeah, it's really neat to see. I missed I was definitely not in the JCC years.
Yeah.
Definitely never. I don't even remember hearing about it when it was at Yankee Doodles.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. But then when it was at the Boys and Girls Club in Simi Valley, that's where I really caught on
Yeah.
and been a part of it ever since. And just watching the growth and watching some of the changes that happen. It's really cool to see something like that grow. And
And
guys, hey, real quick. We got a
mhm,
couple people watching right
yeah,
now. If you're watching, this is Jason Flame. I'm talking to Barry Cohen, event promoter, pro wrestling personality, comedian. We're going to get to
yeah,
talk about that in just a little bit. But if you have any questions and you're watching, because I'm guessing that there might be someone that's watching that you're going to be taking care of this Friday night. So
yeah.
he might have something to say on here. But if you guys have anything to ask, please throw those in the comments, and we'll be sure to get to that. But we got a big thing coming up this Friday night, Legends Night, December 23rd, Millennium Pro Wrestling, at in the Balderdash, the upstairs unit of
Upstairs. Yeah.
Balderdash. So
Boulder
you got to
Dash.
come check it out. We got some people coming back, myself included, but Hell Kid has not wrestled in what is it, 4 years?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Uh, it was a long and hard fought decision, but the documentation came through I was looking for, and he will be there Friday night with me in his corner, and we will be taking the MPW championship back where it belongs.
Wow. Wow. That's a big statement. I hope we have an ambulance on hand, a medic available. You just never know what's going to happen.
Well, it's Northridge, and I've seen some of the layout in the front of some of the community, and I think the ambulance will probably be within a 1 to 2 minute route time, so I think we'll be okay.
Oh, see now, listen. I knew if one of them wasn't watching, the other one would be. Danny Cleary, Mr. Danny Devine wants me to ask you
Okay, here we go.
why are you betting on an old horse instead of a young stallion?
Horses and stuff. I didn't realize I was at Hollywood Park. Um, yeah, I know what Hell Kid's capable of. I've seen the videos that everybody's done. It's been crazy. I saw one today. Our old ring announcer Ben Thomas. He started talking about how Hell Kid's going to be injured the next time he goes to Disneyland. That's insane. I mean, Danny, you really need to be careful too. I mean, you're the one who could be injured next time you go to Disneyland. You better bring your fast pass because Hell Kid might just kick your. Well, it's a PG show. We won't go there.
Gosh, well, you never know what you're going to get on this show when we're doing these interviews. We're going to be bouncing back and forth talking about this wrestling event on this Friday night, December 23rd, Millennium Pro Wrestling. Hell Kid versus Danny Devine is the main event. Don't
And
miss it, guys. Come and check
and,
it out.
one more thing to throw in, Danny. I know you're watching this. If you do get injured and you do go to Disneyland, you should be thankful for Hell Kid because you can skip the lines. You don't have to wait 4 hours standby line for Star Wars. So you should be thanking Hell Kid if you get injured.
Man, oh boy. Here we go. Here we go. And he's here. Look at this, the
There we
best
go.
manager in
That's
the world.
right.
There's your boy.
There's my boy. That's right. I've
Hell
known
Kid.
Hell Kid for almost 20 years. Look at all those. I'm responsible for a lot of those championships. I'm probably cut off in some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Danny and I were just in the gym yesterday. Danny's looking fit.
He
He's
is.
looking
He is.
strong.
I had an interaction with him today.
World champion,
Nice
5 times over.
Danny's great. I've managed Danny before. He's fantastic. But I don't think he's up for it. I don't think he's gonna be able to do this. And I sent Danny a picture. Did you know that the other day, Hell Kid did 16,000 steps in 2 hours? That was amazing. On the Fitbit, I got a readout on the Fitbit, and I put it on Danny Devine's comment.
Well, Hell Kid has something to say about the 5-time world
Yeah,
champ.
5 times.
He's,
Okay.
he's gonna talk about his 9, 10, 12. I don't know how many times he has.
All right.
Well, these guys are going to stay tuned. We'll come back to this because this interview is supposed to be about Barry Cohen, and we've talked about the wrestling part of his career, but let's talk about event management, right? Okay. You went to school, UNLV, wanted to get into event management, and you've been, I've seen the events you do. I mean, you've done some pretty amazing events, and those events have led you to do your own podcast that you've been doing. You've been interviewing some very high level celebrities. I'm very impressed by that. Tell me, what made you want to get into the event management industry?
I started part of it is like, we're talking about motivation, and in the title of your podcast. So here we go. I'm going to throw it right out there. I on a shoot level, as we say per se, I do have issues sometimes with anxiety and depression, as some people do. Now, when you're growing up in different events and different aspects, you can kind of use that as a tool. Facebook user, hello to you both. Okay, and you're not getting my credit card number. I don't know who that is. But so I kind of like being the one organizing the parties, running the parties, rather than having fun at the parties, just to kind of get through it. It's gotten better, obviously, since then, as you can see, but that's how I kind of started out. So like when we would have the dances or different things, like I would learn to DJ, and then that's how I started off, is literally DJing. I would DJ dances and then house parties. And then when I moved to Las Vegas, I started with a company, and I was DJing weddings at the Monte Carlo, at the Rio, at the Flamingo, at every hotel. So I would be going to school, learning about event management, volunteering at some events, and I would be making my money, making the rent money, literally DJing 2 weddings, in a day, sometimes on a weekend, even more. But I would be doing, in a weekend, I could be doing a country western wedding, everything to, I could move from a Jewish wedding to a country western wedding to an Indian wedding to any type of event, and it's like that's how I kind of got my chops, learning how to put everything together, timelines, and then learning it in the school. And then moving back, I ended up working at a party rental house in Van Nuys, and that's where I learned how, where the chairs go, what the tables go, how many people seat this, what kind of staging do you need, things like that. And then I've just been kind of doing ever since. Lately, I've been focusing, as far as events go, on dealing with automotive events, which I've been doing on and off for about 10 years. I worked with Nissan, and I was one of the regional event managers for Nissan, promoting the Pathfinder and Ultima. Right around the same time you and I were doing our stuff. You remember, I was always with the Nissan stuff.
Right.
So now, nowadays, my clients, I'm promoting electric cars. So last year they sent me to Washington, DC, and I helped put an event with the Secret Service of the Department of Transportation with Pete Buttigieg, Secretary Pete. So that was kind of cool. Wow. Take all the politics aside, dealing with the Secret Service is pretty cool. So things like that. I put together for a few years, helped put together the breast cancer walk in LA, raising money. And 1 year I was there, they raised over $250K. So,
wow.
Not just with me, everybody's a team, but I was a part of that. So for that one, I handled like parking and security and entertainment aspects. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, you brought it up, and I
Mhm.
want to touch on this because it is a motivational show. It
Yeah.
is, we want to provide inspiration. And you talked about having and dealing with anxiety,
Mhm.
depression, just coming off COVID, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I teach martial arts, as most
Yes.
people know. I deal with kids and adults every day, and I can't tell you how much COVID brought on, an enormous amount of anxiety and depression within people because, for the most part, everybody was told to stay indoors and to stay away from everybody else and
Yeah.
isolate. And I mean, man, we are not, as a human race, we are not. That's not how we live. That's not how we function. And so to deal with that, anxiety, I meet 4 year olds, 5 year olds that come in and they don't really know how to make eye contact. They don't know how to shake hands. They're very skittish about meeting somebody new because they're just not used to that. But as an adult, we learn to deal with, as we say, deal with the anxiety, deal with depression, make changes in our life. When did that happen early on in your life? Did you deal with this as a child, and did it carry on into your adult life?
A little bit as a kid. I was pretty in college. In college, a lot of that started to shed away.
Hmm.
Especially in that the Jewish Wrestling Federation. I did what probably shouldn't have done was put myself over, on the show. But think, but yeah, things like that. Where you look around, it's kind of hard to meet people and stuff like that. So you
Hmm.
kind of force yourself meet people and forced to be introduced to when you're running you're running the show.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was a part of it. And in stand-up comedy, there's a lot of part of it, like self-deprecating. But especially having a family now and things that I've gone through, I just look in the mirror and anytime I'm feeling like that, I'm like, wow, I've done some pretty cool stuff.
Right.
I don't, whether some person or thinks about that or not. I know what I did was pretty cool, and I did it
Hmm.
ethically for the most part. My, but yeah, it definitely helps. And in the comedy, you have to you're the one, you're the one on stage for 5 minutes, because without you, or whatever it is, so without you there's silence.
Hmm.
So like you said, during COVID, I actually gained a lot of confidence because I did over 100 events during COVID, and I'll tell you how. What I did was, a buddy of mine who's also a DJ, he was out of work, Randy Lehrman, I'll give him a shout out here. He Him and I got together and we did an online trivia show. Uh, thank you. Um, but with our online trivia show that we did, we found a way to link an online trivia game to people's phones, and then we can present it just like we're presenting a PowerPoint over a Zoom. And what we did was we got companies together and families together, and I would write comedy shows with him, tailored to theirs. So that way people can get together and we'd be literally hosting a game show. And we were doing shows for NBC Universal. We were doing shows for a couple other companies I can't name, but we had celebrities on our podcast, on our Zoom calls. But we were able to do 100 shows just connecting people through Zoom, and I got more confidence in my comedy that way.
Hmm.
So we would write questions, like I'd write comedy questions. Like one of them I wrote that I'm very proud of, but I can change the name to Nick Cannon now. But it was like, how many children does Snoop Dogg have? A1, B2, C3, or D? He's currently waiting on some test results. Okay, so we would do that, and then like throughout the show, and update. So I'd write questions, different questions like that. Now I'd switch over to Nick Cannon, and we have Nick Cannon jokes, like Nick Cannon. Did you know that his family reunion is coming up? It's actually going to be at SoFi Stadium, so they can hold all the kids. It's exciting. So
Wow. Well, I think that's really amazing because you look at your resume, right?
mhm.
Event producer, professional wrestling personality, comedian. You're doing all these things that you just wouldn't think, like dealing with anxiety or dealing with depression, that you would be able to put yourself out there and
Yeah,
succeed in it. And you've done some great events. You've done some. I've seen that you're getting more and more bookings on the comedy side, which I think
yeah,
is amazing. I, as a child, I remember. when I was very young, my mom would constantly be on me because I would do
Mhm.
this self soothing gestures, right?
Okay.
And I would constantly be doing. And my mom's like, "What? Just relax, relax." She'd always tell me, "Relax. You're so nervous. You're so."
Yeah.
And looking back now, I never even understood. I never even knew it. But like, th- I had some definite anxiety going on that I was just so, you know, uptight, and I
Yeah.
still find myself, in that. And I think a lot of actors, comedians, people that are in the public eye
Yeah.
deal with this, and nobody has any idea. I look back at someone like Robin Williams. Robin
Yeah.
Williams to me was like one of the most amazing comedians, and you just loved him, right? And
Yeah.
then of course, his passing, and you find out all these problems that he had, this anxiety, depression, and it's like, and you hear more and more, and we're dealing with this in our society. You're hearing about
Yeah.
suicides
You
every
like,
day, every day.
like in a lot of that, like every step, and I've had event failures, and I've had event failures too. Um, so and that's okay. I mean, it just happens to the best of us. But I have to look past that,
Hmm.
and just say that better things will come on it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just one of those people, one of those people that I talked to was about something like this was Roddy Piper. Okay, because we were going into our big show at the time, and I was nervous on some things, and it made me very emotional. Anybody who knows me, I'm a pretty emotional guy. I'm trying to get better lately, but you know, but I was able to talk to him through that, which was great.
Hmm.
So and having motivational friends around you too, you know, such as I mean, one of the people that I talked to, Logan Xavier, he's one of my best friends. You know, uh, he helped me get through a lot. When my uncle passed away, my MPW family got me through that. In addition,
Hmm.
you could have friends from you met before. You can have friends that acquaintances, but that's who I really leaned on. And I was like a hermit in the house. And I had I went out to Monday Night Raw with Ken Knapsack, Logan Xavier, Dan Farron, and myself to Monday Night Raw, and that was probably the first time I was able to really get my head clear a little bit.
Hmm.
You know, and when you have these in the pro wrestling, and I know there's people watching this online right now who see me and they don't know the pro wrestling stuff. Pro wrestling is like family, just like comedians are family.
Hmm.
Everybody's got family, and that's also what motivates you.
Yep.
And it's important. It's important, to take care of your people. I always say that I come at people with the Las Vegas based style customer service. I try and make everybody happy. Does it always work? Mm-mm.
Hmm.
And that's okay, but that's okay.
Right.
You come to me with a problem and I'll listen to it. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I never say I won't listen. And, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, I'm still going to listen to it.
Right.
You know, in Moore Park, 9 times out of 10 was like, oh, can we get I want to come out with a promo. Well, I'm putting out chairs right now, so let's go deal with something else. But, I'll put it in the back of my head.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, I think you're right too about community, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's in the pro wrestling world, you talk about comedians sharing this same community. I know in the martial arts world, it's those
Yeah.
people that we surround ourselves with that
Yes.
continuously support us and back us up. Just
Yes.
something about Paul, right? We were talking about the wrestling. There was a time where the my martial arts school was actually flooded. There was a huge rain in Moore Park, right?
Right.
Well, it was a rain in California, right? But it came down on the building, and my studio was flooded. And at the time, we had Millennium Pro Wrestling and Millennium Wrestling Academy
Mhm.
running out of a unit, 6 doors down.
I
And
remember.
and Paul literally tells me, he's like, "Look, dude, if you need to run your business, I'll just close the wrestling school for now. You
Yes.
take over this unit until we're done." And we literally used the wrestling ring around the ring, and that was just one of those times where it's like, yeah, those people that you surround yourself with are a lot more than just your wrestling buddies. I mean, these are guys that went out on their line. Danny's on here. Danny's been for me been there for me for so many things. He
Yeah.
listens to me. I'm one of those guys that when I'm in the gym, like I like to talk about all my stuff. You talk about anxiety, depression, whatever
Yeah.
internal stuff.
We,
Like when I'm at the gym, that's all we're doing is talking and getting stuff out. And it's like to have friends like that, whether the age, Danny's 20 years younger than me, right? But we have a
yeah.
great relationship because of wrestling and
Hmm.
my martial arts friends too. We have these groups where we lean on each other, and that's what helps us, stay inspired, stay motivated, and I'm very thankful for that, and I know that you are as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, they've been with me at birthdays. They've been with me during the best parts of my life and some of the hardest, and it's been amazing. And just going there, even just watching the wrestling, like on the Friday nights, like I
Hmm.
haven't been able to I've had a lot going on this year, which I'm not getting into, but, um, I, just going there and just seeing the rest, just seeing
Hmm.
some of the either the up and comers or whether the people that I know that have been there or that I've worked with before is just such a motivator, and it's very comforting.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very comforting to
Well,
that.
we've gone through births and deaths
Yeah.
and weddings and divorces and all this different stuff in between. But hey, talking about births, right? You got a new baby. You're daddy now.
Uh, yeah, we have a new baby. He's great. He just turned 1 year old.
Yeah, amazing, right? How
Yeah.
what how has your life changed as a father, right? I mean,
Well, right
because
now, yeah, right now I'm a stay-at-home dad. So I'm doing my events on nights and weekends.
cool.
Hmm.
And what are you learning about yourself? Because man, I used to think that I was like the toughest guy
Yeah,
until my daughter was born, and then I went to like complete mush, right?
yeah,
Complete
I get
mush.
there. I get there. Like there are times where, uh, a lot of it was when I was first started watching wrestling and he was into it, and we brought him to an MPW show. You were there. You met him. But yeah, so things like that. Like the 2 days ago, we took him to meet Cookie Monster. And things like that. Just the little things like
Yep.
that to me, and he's great to spend time with. And my wife is a director of a Jewish temple, so they have a preschool, and her background is in early education. So it's crazy, I take care of him. She gives me the tips and stuff like that. And sometimes, she comes home and I might be watching Killer Clowns. So it's like, but that's just me. Um,
Yeah.
that's just how I am. I like to have fun. Uh, there's serious times, but I like to have fun. That's like comedy is like. I don't make fun of. I make funny. I try and make funny, and I think there's a
Hmm.
difference. So like,
Hmm.
I do Kanye jokes, and our new MPW's new neighbor. You know about that, right?
Which one?
Uh, Apparently Kanye West's church owns some space next in that same down the street from Boulder Dash.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is yeah, I might be if there's any IDs, I'm probably gonna get a fake ID in Van Nuys before I go anywhere. But,
you know, back to being a dad.
yeah,
I think that you're gonna, child's young, right? So
yeah,
as time goes on, and you've met my kids. You've
yeah.
you've
Oh,
seen
I
you've
know
seen
your kids
Mason.
very well.
You've seen Mason grow up, right? Like, I mean, and that's another thing. Like, all the guys, at MPW, like, have watched Mason, like, from this
Yeah.
super,
Oh God, yeah, he's
uber
great.
fan and being involved in storylines at times, and then kind of growing up. But man, there's just so much.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you because I know, I just from experience, having a 20-year-old and a 17
Hmm.
year old, watching them grow up, participating in the things that you love. Like, you love wrestling, they're probably going to love wrestling. I love
Yeah,
Star Wars. My kids love Star Wars,
yeah.
things like
Ghostbusters.
that. And you just have these great memories. Well, let's talk a little bit more about comedy.
Yeah.
So, you've done comedy for a bit now, right? I mean, it didn't
On and
start
off.
recently.
Yeah, yeah. On and off for about stand up on and off for about 6 years.
Hmm.
Writing for a while. During the pandemic, I did a lot of the quiz writing, which is great.
Right.
Now I've been doing a lot at one club at the North Hollywood, the Comedy Chateau. I'll give them a shout out. My next show is December 30th, and I'll provide the link on my page, and I'll send you a link as well.
Cool.
But yeah, it's a cool experience now. Um, Everyone's still kind of learning where they're at right now
Hmm.
because everyone's been locked. Everyone was locked up for a little while. Um, so uh, it's a different world out there than it was 3 years ago. So both socially and politically, and so the jokes that you might have been
Hmm.
able to do 5 years ago, you can't really do right now. You know,
Right.
but then there's topics that come up now, like we were talking about Kanye or something like that. Uh, that come up that create a whole new box of jokes that you can just pick through,
Hmm.
go over. And I don't do political humor per se. Like, uh, I don't care what someone politically thinks, but if
Right.
it's funny, I'll laugh at it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
if it's funny and if it's there, because I've been to comedy clubs where people freak out over like a Trump joke or something, but or something on the right, or even something on the left too. But
Right.
like my comedy idols were Jay Leno, Sam Kinison, Howard Stern, uh, Louis Anderson, things like that.
Hmm.
So Jay Leno, like for example, he'll say a political joke, one way, but it's not going to be as harsh going, I hate that guy, he's the worst in the world, I hope he dies, here's my joke. Okay, that's not what they do. That's what some comedians do, you know uh but that's not what I do. What I believe or not is irrelevant, but can I make it funny?
Hmm. Isn't it sad? Isn't it sad too? You
Yeah.
talk about you can't make the same jokes you made 5 years ago. Could you imagine if the jokes that were funny in the 70s and 80s, like people rehash some of those jokes? Could you imagine people losing their mind?
Well,
I mean, just absolutely losing their mind, and it's so ridiculous, right? I mean, you and I probably think a little bit differently politically, right? We
yeah,
might be on a different
yeah.
end, but you and I can still be friends and have a
Oh,
conversation
dude.
and not be disrespectful, right? But
Yeah,
man, how many people have a hard time uh with the comedy? Like, comedy is funny. I don't care, like you
yeah.
said, if it's right or left or black or white. Who cares? If it's funny, it's funny, right?
Who never cared about that was Gilbert Gottfried. Was because he would, he some of the jokes he said were definitely be considered over the line, but
Sure.
he would go one way and then he'd go another. So he would, uh, he would say an Obama joke, but then he would go say something else about like Jewish people or something like that.
Right.
So I think it's just part of it is a matter of taste. Part of it is how hard you can hit. Like for one of the I did a like we're going back to the Kanye stuff. One of the shows I recently did was for it was in not for but it was in a room with mostly African American people, and that was great. I'm fine with that. I could perform for anybody. So I said, look, when I introduced myself, I said, yeah, my name is Barry Cohen. I go by AJC. Like people have Esquire in their name. I said, it stands for another Jewish comedian, and it helps balance out the lineup. Okay. So now, speaking of another Jewish comedian, can I talk a little bit about Kanye West? Is that okay? Yeah, cool, cool. All right, then I know I can go right into my jokes. Now,
Right.
if I hear it silent, I'm probably gonna pretend that my phone goes off. But
Right.
but I haven't had that. Everybody's cool. Everybody's cool, no matter what one person thinks on the extreme. And I haven't really dealt with a lot of like quote unquote extremists per se. I've interviewed them um, on a couple videos that I've done, and it's just like it's just like interviewing a Howard Stern personality. It's like they're not going to listen; they're just going to bark out the same thing, rotating over and over again the same speech. Did you read a transcript? Well, file the read the transcripts. They need to read the transcripts. Okay, well, have you read the transcript? No, I haven't read the transcripts. Well, then what are you doing out here at 100 degrees, at a rally when you know nothing about what you're talking about? But I've seen that happen on both sides. So,
Hmm.
and that's where you can kind of pick from.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you brought up Gilbert Godfrey. It's funny. I was watching Beverly Hills Cop 2 last night, and he's
Yeah,
in one of the scenes, and
the
he's
parking ticket,
hilarious in a
the
lot of
parking
stuff. So
ticket.
it was funny that you brought him up. But what a unique talent that you have as a comedian or just as a performer to be able to switch on the fly like that, right? I mean, like, you kind of know how to
Yeah.
read your audience, and I mean, we do that in professional wrestling as well, right? You got to be
Mhm.
able to read the crowd and feel, what's going on and which direction you're going to take it. But man, that's a on the fly. That's a pretty
It's not easy.
Pretty good
It's
skill.
I was in stand up comedy school. Like there was a place in Burbank
Hmm.
that was called the Stand Up Comedy Clinic, taught by Jerry Corley, who was one of Jay Leno's ex writers. And I would go each week, and we would try out new stuff, and then
Hmm.
we would get booked for different things. My first main gig was what they call a bringer show. Where you help bring, that's basically the goal. That's promotion, but was at the Comedy Store. But the show had so many people, it got moved to the main stage.
Hmm.
So my first real comedy set per se, out
Hmm.
of that was on the main stage at the Comedy Store. And if that's not pressure, look, I'm not a paid regular at the Comedy Store. I'm throwing out all
Hmm.
those disclaimers. It was what they call a bringer show. I was booked to, how many people, but they thought I was funny enough to bring me. Cool. But just to be there as the first one, and I did pretty good. They gave me a bunch of tips afterwards, and it was great. The promoter, but that was definitely kind of nerve wracking on there.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, well, so that's something interesting because, or I shouldn't say interesting. I think that it's important
mhm.
for people to hear that is that as a comedian, right? You walk
Yeah,
off the stage and you got someone that just watch you and they're going to give you tips. You just did a wrestling match, right?
yeah,
If you listen to people that have experience, you can learn from them. If
yeah,
you're doing martial artists, you just did your best performance of your life. You come off the stage and someone's got a critique to you. You know, sometimes that's hard for people. That's hard
mhm.
for people to take criticism. It's hard for people to say, "Hey, I don't know it all." It's hard to be
Right.
humble. How do you, what is your mindset and what allows you to accept that criticism, to accept those tips and to accept the corrections? Cuz sometimes, ego gets involved in just about everything, right? You can think you're a great comedian, you can think you're a
Yeah,
great pro wrestler, you can think you're a great martial artist, right? But
right.
sometimes your ego gets in the way. How do you put your ego aside and take that advice?
For me, it's easy because I know I'm not the best at what I do. I'm just pretty funny, and so if the promoter comes up to me and says, "Look, here's are my notes, boom, boom, boom," I'm gonna listen to him because I think the worst thing somebody can do, no matter who it is, I think the worst thing you can do is not listen to them. Not
Mhm.
listen, because you're not going to grow. You're not going to find out what's wrong. Because what's going to happen? I can tweak my act, come back, make it better, or I can say, no, "I got it, man. That's fine," and then I do it for my 13 people, and then never get booked again.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
um, which is the more positive approach?
Right.
Ego. Like I check. I've had everybody has shots with ego. Um, Vince McMahon, the epitome. But it's like no, actually, my one of the things that I grew up watching pro wrestling, but it was in the movie Unpinned where I'm ringside at WrestleMania 12, and I got to meet Vince McMahon. This is before we knew everything we know now, but
Mhm.
but seeing what he did and everything he produced, and he just looks around and going, "All right, cool," you know, because it's WrestleMania. It was his baby, and that was before he was promoting, as the character at the time. He was just the announcer,
Mhm.
'96 before he came into it. But I mean, that was awesome. So I've been fortunate enough to meet some great people, have some great discussions that have propelled me forward in learning different ideas, and I think it's been great.
Yeah. And I'll go one further on that,
Mhm.
having been a martial arts instructor for, gosh, I've been teaching since the early 90s.
Yeah,
And I learned so much from like my 3-year-olds. I learned so much from the white belts, the beginners. And I think sometimes that's important too, is like you said, to listen. Listening to someone doesn't necessarily mean that you have to A, validate it, B, follow through and
right,
do it, but just at least taking the time to listen because
right.
I've been on the end where I've had a million ideas, right? And I'll pitch them
Hmm.
to, my instructor or someone else. Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do this. And, you kind of get like, kind of blown away, blown out of the water. And then like that one time they go, "Hey, that's a great idea," and then they
Yeah,
implement it. And I do the same thing with my team. Is I always tell them, "Hey, I want to hear all of your ideas. I want to hear everything." I
yeah,
said, "I may not act on all of them, but I want to hear them because it might just get me to think a little bit differently." But I think it's important that we look at people that even that can't do really anything for us,
yeah.
at that lower level, but we might be able to learn from them, and I think
Yeah,
that's
and
that's
in
really
event
important.
planning, you have to listen. You have to listen. Because if you don't, howdy.
Howdy.
If you don't, yeah, because if you're not listening, you're not going to know. First of all, you have to listen to the client. So when the client books me for an event, I need to know what their goal and what their message is for
Mhm.
the event and how they want to produce. Because if I go and if they book me and they go, I mean, especially weddings, dealing with the bridezillas. If I go, well, I know this first dance is going to be better.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be all over Yelp. You know what I mean, and not in a good way.
Right.
So I've been fortunate enough to. I always say that I act as an event coach to like the brides and the groom
Mhm.
and the bar and bat mitzvahs. I'm a DJ sometimes, but also I have times where I put it all together. And I'm an event coach because I'm there for their vision. A coordinator can put everything together, and that's great. But as you know, in your industry, a coach also motivates and helps
Mhm.
them see their vision and helps us produce the vision that they want, not the
Mhm.
vision that I think they want. Because there are companies, entertainment companies, that will put on the same show, uh, almost almost song for song, really, at different events. So if you go to one event, you're going to go to another event and you've seen it, but they're good, cool. That's not how I do it. I want to build what they want. If they want to hear Kenny G for 2 hours, um, I will explain to them the risks of that. But if that's what they want, then I will set that up. If
Mhm.
that's what they want to play, I will have that conversation with them about, yes, you can have that. However, you're getting married at a social hall, not in an elevator or at a dentist's office. But someone has to have that conversation, and that's where the
Right.
coaching comes in.
Right. No, absolutely. I love that. Hey guys, this is a good time. We got a couple people still watching here live. Thank you, Jr. and Danny and Facebook users. I'm
Facebook
sorry.
user, probably
It,
from
it,
India.
it, No, it comes up because if they're in one of my groups, that
Okay,
it's probably in one of the groups or a
all right.
different platform that just doesn't allow the name.
Well,
But anyway,
yeah.
thank you
Okay.
guys for watching. And if you have any questions, now is a good time for that Q&A session. That if there's anything you want to ask Barry, whether it's related to event promotion, professional wrestling,
Hanukkah.
comedy, yeah, you want to ask about Hanukkah, ask him whatever, and let's get that out there online. Um, so we'll wait a minute. But while we're waiting for them to ask questions or come up with
Mhm.
anything, who would you say is your probably the most influential person in your life or your greatest mentor?
I mean, it's hard to pick one because I've done different things. So I've had, I would say Logan Xavier is one of them. I mean, he really kicks my ass when I need to.
Hmm.
Um, he's definitely one of them. Piper was another one during the time. I had a couple great discussions with him. My parents are great. My dad's a 40-year private investigator, which is a whole nother podcast in itself. Um, the stories we have on that growing up. Um, God, so Jay Leno, for comedy. Jay Leno is definitely one of them. Uh, just seeing how he kind of presents himself and like how I was talking, like, not one way or the other, but just make everybody laugh.
Hmm.
Uh, so, those people would definitely be up there. Um, and I think mentor is such a tricky word because, mentor is about motivation. So anybody could motivate you, consistently.
Hmm.
Um, my MPW family is great. My actual family, cousins, I mean, just I try and be very personable. And I'm a very family oriented person. Uh,
Hmm.
it's a very, very family oriented person.
So now you have started doing some interviews and doing a podcast.
Yeah,
I think you fell into that by chance or by
yeah, yeah.
accident
So
the first couple times, right?
yeah, so there's a comedian, Michael Scott, who I've been helping out with. I've been kind of coaching him myself, being maybe the motivator on that a little bit. And he's been having a podcast, and he does a great job on the podcast. But we were talking about doing something together, and I said, well, let me do these interviews with you.
Hmm.
So we kind of, my name is Barry. My middle name is Scott, and his name is last name is Scott. So we just created the Great Scots podcast because you can't just call it the Mike and Barry show. So it's like, that, we're gonna have a lot of news coming up with that. So he started interviewing people, and then I got to interview Diamond Dallas Page. It was amazing. And then we did this interview with Dane Cook, and it was all about comedy. It was just straight 45 minutes about comedy or whatever, 20, I don't remember. But, and he was such a great guy. And then Melissa Rivers, Joan Rivers' daughter, was great. And then we started talking about like decorating and Hanukkah and stuff. So it's not just the like, how is your mom? Well, we know how her mom is, but how, how is your mom on your, influence on your life? What projects are you doing now? Oh, I saw this. No. It's like talking about like, when you were with your mom, did you punch up jokes for her? Did you do this? What motivates you on what you're doing right now? Because you're not, not as you have your podcast, but there really hasn't been a lot of red carpets in a while. So I would ask her things like that. So just kind of more of like an interview, like talking to somebody, just like you and I are doing now, rather than just like the standard fact sheet. But make it funny and make it entertaining. So that's kind of how I fell into it. So we started doing that. So it's like researching the guests, figuring out, first making sure they're a good fit. The one who was really good was Susan Olsen, the Brady Bunch. She played Cindy Brady. Cindy Brady. Okay. And she's local too, by the way. But she was real interesting to talk to. And we talked to some stuff about Brady, but it wasn't all about Brady. And I do have another Brady Bunch celebrity coming up, not necessarily from the TV show. And that's all I'm going to say right now until I get an actual date.
Okay.
I can tease that. So,
now, is it on YouTube? Is it on social? How do we find that
YouTube
podcast?
Yeah, right now it's on YouTube. It's on my direct YouTube page under Event Busters.
Okay.
You can also look up the great. I'm rebranding everything as we speak. So probably within the next couple of weeks, it'll be on Spotify and Apple. And I'm not an Apple guy, so you'll have to figure that out yourself and call the customer service number. But Spotify, Spotify is easy. I'll have a website. I'm building it right now.
Cool.
And then locally, I have Event Busters where if you need karaoke, if you need DJ, if you need we do these outdoor movie nights, which are great. We just showed Top Gun at one of them, which was really loud, and I thankfully I found out after we started that they didn't have an HOA. So but we had the DJ system set up and everything outside, so we just did that for a school, so that was really good. So yeah, we got a lot of projects coming up, and I will say this, I cannot legally say where or when, but soon, for one episode, I will be on a nationally televised show.
Okay.
So that's all I can say. For that's going to be pretty funny, and that's all I can really say about that.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. He wants to know, who is the greatest wrestler you ever managed, and has he been champion more than 9 times or less?
It is, well, of course, it's the Hell Kid.
Oh my God!
The Hell Kid. There's no A, B, C, or D, true or false.
Listen, I can't even believe I'm putting this up on the screen. But how many times have you been stripped of the title for being Danny DeVito? Wow. I don't know.
Now we're getting the deep cuts right now.
I don't know. I don't know if I mean, do I even have an answer that's stripped? I don't think that.
Yeah, okay.
Have I been stripped of my title? I lost my title.
You did lose your title, and I was probably responsible for it. But now, one of my favorite MPW memories in Moore was actually Danny Devine was there with his fans, and his fans took up like the whole arena, which was fine, and they didn't like me very much for one reason or another. I might have said something. You know where I'm going with it. Might have said something, and I know the footage is out there.
Oh my God.
About how I started talking, first of all, how Moore Park backwards spelled crap room. I told them that. And then I told them that they were lucky there because normally I don't get out on Friday nights, because of the name. And that's all I'll get into with that. And they just literally pretty much booed me out of the building, and then at the time, led a prayer circle for my soul outside of the arena, and then I proceeded to do a prayer for them, and they didn't like my prayer, so then they started to attack me more, and then you pulled me back in to the room. So you did save me at that point, which I did appreciate, because it was getting a little testy, with
That
his
was
fans.
that is a funny memory right
Yeah,
there. That's a good
yeah.
one. We had some great times. Well, guys, listen, we're gonna wrap this up here today. Um, Thank you, Barry Cohen, for being on the show and
Mhm.
kind of kind of doing a little shoot, little work,
Yeah,
in and out. Had some fun with it. Thanks, Danny and Hellkid, for being here.
yeah.
Don't forget, guys. Don't
Danny,
forget.
Danny, you have was it Wednesday? You got 2 days left, man. You can relinquish the title if you want, and then you don't have to get injured. But if you want to go through this and get injured, I don't want to see you get injured. But just remember, uh, uh, you do skip the lines at Disneyland. So if you really want Hellkid to injure you, you will save a 4-hour wait at Star Wars, and it's still Haunted Mansion Holiday. So you'll save that, and you do get better parking.
Well, guys, don't miss December 23rd, this Friday night, Millennium Pro Wrestling main event. Danny Devine versus Hellkid, managed by none other
Oh, and
than
Hellkid
BS
brought a
Cohen.
manager, and Hellkid or not, Danny Devine brought a manager. I don't know
He
what was up
does.
with that. They brought back Triple X. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was at Starbucks, probably making the Starbucks, but I don't know what happened to this. They brought him back. On, but he better not get in my way either if he knows what's good for him.
Oh boy. Well, guys, you're gonna have to check it out for yourselves.
Yeah,
But
Friday night.
for now, let's say goodbye to Barry Cohen. And Barry, hang out for about 60 seconds because I'll play my video again and then we'll have a recap before we go. But
Absolutely.
guys, please share this video. Hope you enjoyed today learning more about Barry Cohen and check out all our Master Motivation videos coming up next Monday. Next Monday and Wednesday we'll be back on again, but each and every Monday I'm scheduled all the way through, September of next year. And if you would like to be featured on Master Motivation Podcast, you can contact me on social media or you can email me at mastermotivationpodcast@gmail.com and I will get you booked. But again, Barry, thanks for being on the show. Hang out for about 60 minutes. Cool?
60 minutes or 60 seconds?
Well, you can stay there for 60 minutes, but
Perfect.
I'll be there in 60
We're
seconds.
doing another show.
Yeah, we might.
All right.
Hey
All
guys,
right.
listen. Also, just to remind everybody, enjoy the holidays. Whether you're celebrating Hanukkah, you're celebrating Christmas, or whatever else you might be celebrating. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to everybody. Enjoy the extra time with your families
Yes.
and your loved
It's
ones.
it's very important. And if you're going to sit in the crowd for the people of Northridge, I've seen the people of Northridge. Please remember your hand sanitizer, and that's very important if you're around the wrestlers. And if you would like to wear a mask, I've seen how some of these people look. You're more than welcome to, and not for here, but mainly for here, because I've seen some pretty scary people in this crowd.
Got to end
All
it
right,
with a
thank you.
laugh. Got to end it with a laugh. Thanks again, Barry. All right,
Mhm.
guys, we'll see you next time. Make it a great day.